It hurts when people look at your life and quietly decide that you are falling behind. It hurts when they see your struggles, but never see your strength. It hurts when they notice the delays, the disappointments, the closed doors, the setbacks, and the lonely seasons, yet fail to recognize the courage it took for you to keep moving forward through all of it. There are seasons when it feels like everyone has reached a conclusion about you, before your story has even finished being written. They see the chapter where you are struggling and assume it is the ending. They see the battle and assume you have already lost. They see the waiting and assume nothing is coming. They see the silence and assume God has forgotten you. What they do not see are the countless moments when you chose not to quit. What they do not see are the tears you wiped away before anyone arrived. What they do not see are the prayers whispered late at night when nobody knew how much you were carrying. What they do not see are the invisible victories that happened inside your heart. Some of your greatest victories happened in silence when nobody was watching. There were days when simply getting out of bed was an act of courage. There were seasons when your heart felt exhausted, yet you continued to show kindness to people around you. There were moments when disappointment knocked on your door again and again, yet you refused to let bitterness take control of your spirit. That strength matters. That perseverance matters. That faith matters. The world often measures success by what can be seen. It measures worth by applause, recognition, popularity, status, and visible achievement. But some of the most important growth happens where no audience exists. Character is formed in private. Wisdom is developed in difficult seasons. Endurance is built through repeated challenges. Compassion is strengthened through pain. Faith becomes deeper when circumstances offer no immediate reason to hope. The season you are walking through may not look impressive to others, but appearances rarely tell the whole story. A seed buried beneath the ground appears inactive to anyone looking from above. Yet beneath the surface, unseen growth is already taking place. Roots are developing, strength is being established, preparation is happening. Many people walk away because they only believe in visible progress. They trust what they can immediately see. They celebrate quick results. They admire finished products. But God often works differently. Sometimes the most important work happens long before the visible breakthrough arrives. Sometimes preparation takes longer than expected because the purpose attached to your life requires deeper foundations. You carried burdens that few people ever noticed. You faced discouragement that many people would never understand. You endured seasons that tested every part of your heart. Yet somehow, through grace, through resilience, through quiet determination, you kept moving forward. That alone says something powerful about who you are. The fact that you are still standing says more about your strength than you realize. There may have been moments when you questioned your own progress. You may have looked around and wondered why others seemed to move ahead while your journey felt slower. You may have compared your timeline to someone else's and felt discouraged. You may have wondered whether all your efforts were accomplishing anything at all. Those feelings are human. Those moments are understandable. Yet comparison has a way of hiding truth. Every life unfolds differently. Every purpose develops differently. Every season carries different lessons. Some people receive quick opportunities, but never develop the strength to sustain them. Others spend years being prepared for responsibilities they cannot yet see. The waiting season often feels unfair while you are living through it, but later it becomes clear that many of the delays were actually preparing you for something greater than immediate comfort. Not every battle you fought was in vain. Not every setback was meaningless. Not every disappointment was a dead end. Some experiences were teaching you lessons that success alone could never provide. Some hardships were strengthening parts of you that comfort would have left undeveloped. Some losses were clearing space for healthier opportunities. Some endings were making room for beginnings you could not yet imagine. People often assume that winning only begins when circumstances improve, yet many victories begin long before visible results appear. A victory begins when a wounded heart chooses healing instead of bitterness. A victory begins when someone refuses to surrender hope. A victory begins when faith survives a difficult season. A victory begins when a person continues to love despite disappointment. A victory begins when someone gets back up after being knocked down repeatedly. Those victories matter because they shape the person who will eventually walk into future blessings. Imagine how different your story would be if every challenge had caused you to quit. Imagine what would have happened if every rejection convinced you that your value depended on other people's opinions. Imagine if every setback had stolen your belief in yourself. Yet here you are, perhaps not where you hope to be yet, perhaps still carrying unanswered questions, perhaps still waiting for certain doors to open. But you are here. You survived things that once felt impossible. You made it through days that seemed unbearable. You continued moving forward when your strength felt depleted. That is not failure. That is resilience. That is evidence of a strength that many people overlook because it does not always make headlines. Sometimes people misjudge your journey because they only see the struggle. They do not see the growth that struggle produced. They see the battle scars but not the wisdom. They see the delay but not the preparation. They see the hardship but not the maturity. They see the tears but not the courage. Their perspective remains incomplete because they are evaluating a process that is still unfolding. God saw the tears that nobody else noticed. God saw the moments when your heart felt heavy. God saw every act of kindness that went unappreciated. God saw every sacrifice that received no recognition. God saw every prayer offered in faith. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was ignored. Nothing escaped his attention. Sometimes the greatest encouragement comes from remembering that your value was never determined by public recognition. Your worth existed before anyone applauded you. Your significance existed before anyone believed in you. Your purpose existed before anyone understood you. You are worth far more than the moments that tried to make you feel small. The opinions of others may influence how they treat you, but they do not determine who you truly are. There is something deeply valuable within you that difficult seasons could not destroy. There is a strength within you that kept moving forward even on your darkest days. There is a resilience that carried you through storms that should have broken you. There is a faith that continued believing even when visible evidence seemed scarce. Those qualities are not accidents. They are evidence of growth. They are evidence of character. They are evidence that your journey has been shaping something meaningful inside you. The people who assumed you were losing may have been looking at temporary circumstances instead of permanent truths. Circumstances change. Seasons change. Difficult chapters eventually give way to new ones. Growth continues even when progress feels slow. Healing continues even when emotions remain tender. Purpose continues unfolding even when the future remains unclear. Your story has value even if it did not unfold the way you expected. In fact, some of the most inspiring stories are not the ones that avoided hardship. They are the ones that transformed hardship into strength. They are the stories of people who refused to allow difficult circumstances to define their future. They are the stories of people who kept believing that better days could still arrive. If this message is meeting you in a season where your progress feels invisible, remember that invisible does not mean absent. Growth is still happening. Healing is still happening. Preparation is still happening. Your journey is not over. The chapter you are living today does not have the authority to determine how the entire story ends. The seasons that tested you were also shaping who you were becoming. One day you may look back and realize that what felt like losing was actually preparation. What felt like delay was actually protection. What felt like weakness was actually strength being developed beneath the surface. What felt like the end was actually the beginning of a new season. If these words encouraged your heart and reminded you that your struggles do not define your future, subscribe to the channel and continue walking with a community that believes in faith, healing, resilience, and purpose. May each message remind you that your story still matters and that hope remains alive even in difficult seasons. There is a unique kind of exhaustion that comes from being misunderstood for a long time. It is not simply the exhaustion of working hard. It is not merely the exhaustion of facing obstacles. It is the exhaustion that comes from carrying a story inside your heart that nobody else seems to understand. It is the weariness that develops when people judge your present situation without knowing the battles you have survived to get here. It is the quiet ache of feeling as though your perseverance has gone unnoticed and your sacrifices have been forgotten. Many people have experienced difficult seasons, but there is something especially painful about enduring hardship while watching others assume that your struggle is evidence of failure. They see what you have not achieved yet. They notice what you have lost. They focus on what is missing. They rarely stop to consider what you have overcome. They do not see the strength it took to continue showing up when disappointment became familiar. They do not see the courage required to keep believing after repeated setbacks. They do not see the faith that remained alive through nights filled with uncertainty. Yet those unseen qualities tell a much more accurate story than appearances ever could. Sometimes the strongest people are not the ones receiving the most recognition. Sometimes they are the people quietly carrying responsibilities, disappointments, worries, and burdens while still choosing kindness. Sometimes they are the people who have every reason to become bitter but continue choosing compassion. Sometimes they are the people who keep moving forward even when progress feels painfully slow. The world tends to celebrate visible success, but heaven often notices faithfulness. Heaven notices the person who keeps going when nobody is cheering. Heaven notices the person who continues acting with integrity when shortcuts seem easier. Heaven notices the person who remains hopeful when circumstances invite despair. Those moments matter more than you may realize. Every season leaves something behind. Difficult seasons often leave behind wisdom. They teach lessons that comfort cannot teach. They reveal strengths that ease cannot reveal. They expose priorities, values, and convictions in ways that success never could. Think about how much you have learned through the challenges you never wanted. Think about the patience that developed while waiting. Think about the compassion that grew through pain. Think about the perspective that emerged after disappointment. Think about the resilience that formed through repeated struggles. You are not the same person you were before those experiences. The trials changed you, but they did not destroy you. In many ways, they refined you. That process may not have felt pleasant, it may not have felt fair, yet it shaped qualities within you that have lasting value. There are people who seem strong because life has been easy. Then there are people who are strong because life has been difficult, and they kept going anyway. That second kind of strength carries a depth that cannot be manufactured. It is earned through endurance. It is built through persistence. It is formed through countless decisions to rise again after disappointment. Your kindness cost you more than most people will ever understand. There were moments when you gave encouragement while feeling discouraged yourself. There were moments when you offered support while carrying burdens of your own. There were moments when you continued showing grace, even when life seemed unfair. Those choices reveal something beautiful about your character. They reveal a heart that refused to let hardship take away its humanity. That matters. It matters more than temporary recognition. It matters more than public approval. Character is one of the few things that becomes more valuable with time. When people thought you were losing, they were often measuring the wrong things. They measured position instead of purpose. They measured appearance instead of growth. They measured outcomes instead of character. They measured temporary circumstances instead of lasting transformation. The truth is that many important victories cannot be seen immediately. Emotional healing is a victory. Learning to trust again is a victory. Refusing to give up is a victory. Developing wisdom through hardship is a victory. Growing stronger after disappointment is a victory. These victories may not attract attention, but they shape the future in powerful ways. You may not realize how far you have come because you live with your own struggles every day. Growth is sometimes difficult to recognize from the inside. You remember your mistakes. You remember your fears. You remember your setbacks. Yet if you could compare who you are today with the person you were years ago, you would likely notice significant change. You have survived experiences that once seemed impossible. You have learned lessons that only adversity could teach. You have developed strength that only perseverance could create. The person you are becoming has been forged through challenges that many people never saw. That growth is real. That progress matters. There are moments in life when God seems silent, and those moments can feel confusing. Yet silence does not mean absence. A teacher can remain silent during a test without abandoning the student. A builder can spend months laying foundations before visible walls begin to rise. Preparation often happens in places where immediate results are not obvious. The same is true in life. There are seasons when God is working beneath the surface in ways that are not immediately visible. During those seasons, it becomes tempting to believe that nothing is happening. Yet later, when the pieces begin coming together, it becomes clear that important preparation was taking place all along. Your current season may not look like victory, but appearances can be deceiving. Some victories arrive gradually, some breakthroughs begin quietly. Some transformations happen one small step at a time. The greatest changes in life often start internally before they become externally visible. Long before circumstances change, perspectives change. Long before opportunities arrive, character develops. Long before doors open, preparation occurs. If you are still waiting for certain answers, do not mistake waiting for failure. If you are still carrying hopes that have not yet become reality, do not mistake delay for defeat. Your journey is not being measured solely by visible accomplishments. It is also being shaped by who you are becoming along the way. The people who assumed your best days were behind you may eventually discover that they misunderstood the season entirely. They interpreted preparation as failure. They interpreted waiting as weakness. They interpreted hidden growth as absence of progress. They saw a chapter and assumed it was the conclusion, yet your story continues. Every sunrise is evidence that another opportunity exists. Every new day carries possibilities that yesterday did not contain. Every season has the potential to reveal blessings that were previously hidden. Hope is powerful because it allows you to see beyond current circumstances. Hope reminds you that difficult chapters are not permanent. Hope reminds you that pain does not have the final word. Hope reminds you that setbacks do not define destiny. The future remains unwritten. The possibilities ahead remain larger than your current limitations. The faithfulness you demonstrated during difficult seasons was not meaningless. The prayers you prayed were not wasted. The tears you shed were not invisible. The sacrifices you made were not forgotten. God remembers what people overlook. God values what the world often ignores. God sees the heart behind every act of perseverance. There may still be challenges ahead. There may still be moments when the path feels uncertain. Yet there is also reason for confidence. Not confidence based on perfect circumstances, but confidence based on everything you have already survived. The same strength that carried you through previous storms remains within you. The same resilience that helped you endure difficult seasons is still present. The same faith that sustained you before can sustain you again. You are stronger than many people realize. Perhaps you are even stronger than you realize. The battles you fought did not leave you empty. They left you wiser. They left you deeper. They left you more compassionate. They left you more resilient. They revealed strengths that were hidden before the struggle began. One day the lessons of this season will make more sense than they do right now. One day you may see connections that are currently invisible. One day you may understand how challenges helped prepare you for opportunities that did not yet exist. Until then, continue honoring the progress you have already made. Continue recognizing the value that exists within you. Continue remembering that your worth does not rise and fall with public opinion. Continue believing that difficult seasons are not permanent destinations. They are passages. They are chapters. They are parts of a larger story that is still unfolding. If this message strengthened your heart, subscribe to the channel and continue receiving encouragement rooted in faith, healing, purpose, and perseverance. May these messages remind you that your journey matters, your growth matters, and that even in quiet seasons, God is still writing meaningful chapters into your story. One of the greatest mistakes people make is assuming that a difficult season reveals the full truth about a person's life. They see someone in the middle of a struggle and believe they have seen the entire story. They observe a season of waiting and assume nothing significant will ever happen. They witness disappointment and conclude that defeat is permanent. Yet life rarely works that way. Some of the most meaningful transformations happen slowly. Some of the most powerful stories spend years developing before anyone recognizes their significance. What appears ordinary today may become extraordinary tomorrow. What appears delayed today may simply be developing according to a timetable that has not yet been revealed. The truth is that many people gave their opinion of your future based on temporary circumstances. They evaluated your potential through the lens of your current challenges. They confused a season with a destiny. They confused a chapter with an ending. They confused a storm with the entire journey. But storms eventually pass. Seasons eventually change. Pain eventually gives way to healing. The difficult moments that seem permanent while you are living through them often become distant memories with enough time and perspective. This does not mean every problem disappears overnight. It does not mean life suddenly becomes effortless. It means that hardship does not possess the authority to define the rest of your story. The difficult season may have shaped part of your journey, but it does not own your future. There is something remarkable about people who continue moving forward after repeated disappointments. They understand a truth that others often forget. They understand that resilience is not built when everything goes according to plan. It is built when plans fall apart and a person chooses to keep going anyway. Resilience is developed through persistence. It grows through adversity. It strengthens through repetition. Every time you chose hope instead of surrender, resilience grew. Every time you chose faith instead of despair, resilience grew. Every time you chose to stand back up after being knocked down, resilience grew. Those moments were not meaningless. They were shaping the person you are becoming. Sometimes people think winning is only about reaching a destination. They imagine that victory begins when circumstances finally improve. Yet many victories happen long before the breakthrough arrives. You won every time you refused to let bitterness define you. You won every time you continued believing that your life still had meaning. You won every time you chose kindness despite disappointment. You won every time you protected your heart from becoming hard after being hurt. You won every time you trusted that God was still present, even when answers seemed distant. Those victories may not have received applause, but they mattered deeply. They revealed a strength that circumstances could not destroy. They revealed a character that adversity could not erase. They revealed a faith that survived seasons of uncertainty. Many people only celebrate visible outcomes because visible outcomes are easy to understand. They celebrate promotions, achievements, recognition, and success stories. Yet there is another kind of victory that deserves celebration. It is the victory of a person who remains compassionate after experiencing pain. It is the victory of a person who continues loving after being disappointed. It is the victory of a person who remains hopeful after repeated setbacks. Those victories reveal something profound about the human spirit. They reveal that adversity does not always diminish a person. Sometimes it reveals the greatness that was already there. There may have been times when you wondered if your efforts were making any difference. You may have questioned whether your patience was worth it. You may have questioned whether your faith mattered. You may have questioned whether your sacrifices accomplished anything at all. Those questions are understandable because waiting often creates uncertainty. Yet many important things in life require patience. Growth requires patience. Healing requires patience. Wisdom requires patience. Purpose often requires patience. The process can feel frustrating because progress is not always visible, yet invisible progress is still progress. A tree spends years developing roots before reaching impressive heights. Foundations are laid before buildings rise. Preparation comes before performance. The same principle often applies to life. The seasons that seemed slow may have been creating foundations for future opportunities. The seasons that felt hidden may have been preparing you for responsibilities not yet visible. The seasons that appeared empty may have been full of unseen growth. God has a way of working in places people overlook. He often develops strength in hidden seasons. He often prepares hearts before opening doors. He often builds character before providing greater responsibility. While others may focus on what is happening around you, God often focuses on what is happening within you. He sees the growth that nobody else notices. He sees the healing taking place beneath the surface. He sees the courage required to keep moving forward. He sees the faith that survives difficult circumstances. Nothing about your journey has been invisible to him. God saw the tears that nobody else noticed. God saw the burdens you carried quietly. God saw the prayers spoken through weary hearts. God saw every moment when you almost gave up but kept going. Those moments mattered. They still matter. They always will. There is a reason hope remains powerful. Hope allows you to see beyond present circumstances. Hope reminds you that current struggles are not permanent definitions. Hope reminds you that the future contains possibilities not yet visible. Hope reminds you that the story is still being written. The people who assumed you were losing may never fully understand what was actually happening. They may never recognize the growth that occurred beneath the surface. They may never appreciate the strength that was being developed during difficult seasons, yet their understanding is not required for your progress. Their approval is not required for your purpose. Their recognition is not required for your value. Your worth was never dependent upon their opinions. Your significance was never dependent upon their expectations. You were valuable before they noticed you, and you remain valuable regardless of whether they ever understand your journey. The most important thing is not whether everyone else recognizes your progress. The most important thing is that you continue recognizing the truth about yourself. You are not defined by your setbacks. You are not defined by your disappointments. You are not defined by your losses. You are not defined by the seasons that challenged you. You are defined by the strength that carried you through them. You are defined by the courage that kept moving forward. You are defined by the resilience that refused to quit. You are defined by the faith that remained alive through uncertainty. You are defined by the character developed through adversity. Your story has value even if it unfolded differently than expected. Your journey matters even if it has been difficult. Your perseverance matters even if few people noticed it. The fact that you are still standing says more about your strength than you realize. The fact that you are still hoping says more about your courage than you realize. The fact that you are still believing in better days says more about your faith than you realize. There is something beautiful about a person who refuses to allow hardship to extinguish hope. There is something inspiring about a person who continues believing that goodness still exists after experiencing disappointment. There is something powerful about a person who remains kind in a world that often rewards cynicism. That power exists within you. The future may not unfold exactly as you imagine. Life rarely follows perfect plans. Yet that does not mean beautiful things are not ahead. It does not mean meaningful opportunities are not coming. It does not mean blessings are absent. Sometimes the greatest surprises arrive after the longest periods of waiting. Sometimes the most meaningful chapters follow the most difficult seasons. Sometimes what looked like losing was actually preparation for something greater than you could see at the time. Continue moving forward with confidence. Continue honoring the strength that brought you this far. Continue believing that your life carries meaning and purpose. Continue trusting that difficult chapters do not determine final outcomes. Continue remembering that you are worth far more than the moments that try to make you feel small. Continue remembering that not every battle you fought was in vain. Continue remembering that some of your greatest victories happened in silence when nobody was watching. And continue remembering that the story is not over. If these words helped you recognize the strength, value, and purpose that still exist within you, subscribe to the channel and remain connected to messages that encourage faith, healing, growth, and hope. May every message remind you that you are not forgotten, your journey is not wasted, and your future still holds meaningful possibilities.